No.
Where's he set up?
He's got a full agenda and all the attachments.
Oh, you have like.
Ready to go. In case that doesn't. Everybody ready to go?
Let's go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of the University of City, Texas. It is Tuesday, believe it or not, November 2nd, 2021. I'll call this meeting to order now at 6:30 p.m. and call for a quorum check, please.
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Here.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Here.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Here.
Councilmember Najarian?
Here.
Councilmember Shelby?
Here.
Councilmember Foley?
Quorum is present. We shall proceed. So this evening's invocation will be given by Councilmember Maxwell, and I'll lead us in the pledges afterwards, so please, everyone, please stand.
Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with simple prayers. We offer a prayer of thanks for the ability to see joy in things that surround us. A prayer of hope for those that only see grief and sadness. A prayer of patience for all as we help each other in our journey to find peace and acceptance. In His holy name, amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Nice to see a good group of people here this evening for our council meeting. I really appreciate your attendance. We certainly would hope that you would all want to attend as much as possible, because this is your city in operation. Okay, so the items that we have this evening, we don't have the council members here, so we'll go right on to tab number 8, which is to, I just want to say one thing before that. Our city clerk and at the landfill director, her grandmother passed away, so that's a sad time for Krista, and that's why she's not here this evening. So I would just ask for just a moment of silence to recognize her.
Thank you, sir. That's it. That's good.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. By the way, today would have been my mother's 104th birthday. Wow. She lived till 2002. But so, and I have a grandson who was born on her birthday, so it's a very special. Okay, all right, let's move on. Tab number 8. Consider the City Council meeting minutes of Tuesday, September 28th, special meeting, and the October 19th regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second. Made by Councilman Maxwell, second by Councilman Najarian. Yes.
I talked to Kristen about it, and she had me down as a nay vote on item B. She says she's already corrected it.
Okay, the correction's been made to the minutes. Okay, very good. All right, so that motion's been made and seconded, the corrections to the minutes have been taken care of. Any other discussion? Okay, call for the vote, please. Kim?
Councilmember Maxwell?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Councilmember Foley?
Okay, that motion passes. We'll move on to the next item, which is citizens to be heard. Has anyone signed up this evening to address council? Please check. I thought I saw some people sign up. Okay, there are 3 individuals that signed up this evening, so I'll call them up in the order that they signed up. First off, Mr. Bouveau, please come on up and give us your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, my name is Freddie Ripple, 635 Balboa Drive, Universal City. Thank you very much. 3 minutes. Basically, the 3 minutes are dedicated to the fact that the council has voted to approve the largest budget in the district in Universal City, primarily associated with increases in admin, finance, and sensitive planning and development. At the last meeting, ostensibly several council members voiced objection to making more transparent city finances. Now that you have secured those finances, what I ask this council to consider is better transparency for better trust. Essentially, whether I am a member of a church or whatever, we have a detailed financial accounting that everybody can see. So basically what I'd like the council to do now that you're in such good administrative shape and financial shape is to reconsider the point about providing better detailed financial records for the city, particularly for non-competitive bid processes. Thank you for your attention. One more item. Lacking in the gateway on the item for distribution of trash cans was the consideration for the disabled to approach the city so that they can have services that they need for that. So I asked that some future gateway that deals with the trash cans include a mechanism so that the disabled can find the services that they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Will. Again, I forgot to mention that these are items that shows you're relatively new sometimes to a council meeting, as we cannot take any action or discuss it with the member because it is not an agendized item. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. I should have mentioned that at the beginning of our citizens to be heard. Next individual signed up this evening is Mr. John Heberling.
First of all, y'all look so spiffy in your ties. And Beverly, you do too, even though you're not wearing. We had a presentation at the last meeting regarding proposed development using the PFC financing. And there's another one on the agenda today. And there were just some things I wanted council to consider. First of all, the fact that either development will require rezoning. And I know that the council has been fairly hard-lined about not rezoning over the years. And this just, to me, doesn't seem like the place to start. Second of all, if we went through with these, the essence and heart of the PFC is the absence of property tax. So we would lose any property tax revenue. Even as undeveloped properties, these properties are still bringing in a fair amount. This one considering tonight, according to the Bear County Appraisal District, is bringing in excess of $50,000 a year in property tax. That would all disappear, and obviously if it was developed for a retail center or something like that, that property tax would be even higher. And then obviously if it's an apartment complex, there's no sales tax. So the two things that we could use the most in this city would disappear. In doing some research on PFCs, I personally wasn't impressed. It sounds like a fantastic deal for the developer, and there are likely cities who could benefit from something like that, but I don't think Universal City would. And I would just ask y'all to consider that as you make your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next individual that signed up this evening is Ms. Diane Woods.
Hi, Diane Woods, 13415 Muses. Just tagging on to what John said, my husband Terry May and I, listened to the concept plan for the 2902 Pat Booker Road at the last council meeting, and then tonight there's going to be the similar concept plan presented for 2280 Pat Booker. Both are proposing a public facility corporation, or PFC, to build apartments. And we just felt like you needed to know where at least some of your citizens stand on the issue. And we don't support any proposal that uses public facility corporations. From what we heard and have read, this sounds like a great plan for the developers, while the city is taking on all of the risk and losing property tax revenue and potential sales tax revenue. Add on to that, our school districts will lose revenue, while the student population will likely increase with it being apartments. It just feels like We are buying a pig and a poke that we'll be stuck with for 75 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Did anyone else like to address council that didn't have an opportunity to sign up on the sheet? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Let's move on then to our business for this evening. The first one is tab number B, which is to present and discuss the concept plan for 2280 Patchbrook Road. I'll turn it over to City Manager. Matt?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have 2280 Pat Booker Road, which is an approximate 13-acre site right here on Pat Booker Road, near the Peppermill Apartments, and also across the street are the Michaels Apartments and the, I don't know what they call them, used to be called Gold something, and the other one. So this evening they are proposing apartment complex for that particular thing under the PFC concept. I know that you heard it last time. Just want to remind you that this is a different presentation from what you heard last time. And that as we go through the process, it is important for council to give the developer some clear feedback so that they understand whether they, after this meeting, they should move forward or not move forward. Again, we're not asking you to vote. We're not asking for a consensus. It's just that we need to give them some clear guidance and clear direction on how you feel about their particular project. So with that, who's going to speak first? A familiar face.
For better or worse, right? Thank you, Ms. Turner. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you tonight about the proposed project. My name is Rob Killen. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Killen, Griffin, and Fairmont. Our address is 100 Northeast Loop 410 in San Antonio. I'm here on behalf of the NRP Group. NRP Group is proposing development. In just a minute, Jason's going to come up with NRP and talk about the project. I just really wanted to tee it up. I've had the great pleasure of working with NRP and representing them on various projects for about 17 years. I've known Jason maybe a little over 17 years. We're both much younger when we met, young lawyer, young developer, but the NRP Group, again, like I said, I've done a lot of projects for them. They have extensive experience both with multifamily development as well as with PFCs. Jason's going to talk a little bit about that. They also do this across the nation. They have a San Antonio office. They've done a lot of work in the area, but they also do this nationwide, a lot of experience. And so there's a lot behind what Jason is going to say in terms of being able to back up what they do. Appreciate the couple that spoke. Thank you so much for your comments about the PFC. I think part of our purpose tonight, part of the purpose with the other project last 2 weeks ago, part of the purpose is really to help the council understand the Public Finance Corporation structure and the benefits, the exposure, the risk, but really the upside to the city. It's also an opportunity really not just for the council, but for the entire citizenry of the Universal City to understand why as a council, why as a city you would choose to enter into a partnership with a developer to bring Class A development to an area that is currently undeveloped to address an underserved need in housing and really bring a quality project that will be complementary to the Pat Booker corridor. So with that, I am going to shut up and sit down and bring Jason up. Jason's going to do all the substantive stuff. He's going to present, as Ms. Turner mentioned, it's just the concept of the plan. We're looking for feedback tonight. Talk about the project. He's also going to talk about the PFC structure. Again, our goal is to both educate and to learn, to hear from you and to share with you information, but also folks here tonight. Jason?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. As Rob mentioned, my name is Jason Arachiga with the NRP Group. I'm the Senior Vice President of Development. I live on Impala Bend in San Antonio, Texas, for the record. This is, of course, our first presentation to Universal City, so welcome any questions during and after if y'all you so choose. But what we are presenting tonight is a multifamily development on 2280 Pat Booker Road. If you're familiar, just right up the street, obviously most of y'all are familiar with that. Next slide, please. A little bit about the NRP Group itself. We are multi-tiered. So we are development, construction, and management. In other words, the buck stops with us. So when we are here as a developer, we are also going to build a project and manage a project as well, which I know is something important to a lot of cities, and who's going to be managing it, who's going to be building it. And as a partner, as a proposal of a partner, we would be asking y'all to have plenty of input, both if we move past this stage, presuming that, if we move past this stage, into how it looks, how it's structured, what the PFC looks like, and most importantly, what safeguards are there for the city. And so I think that's something that's really important that we'll talk about earlier in order to mitigate or in most cases eliminate risk for the city. Next slide, please. Again, NRP, we've developed over 20,000 units, 25,000 units now in the state of Texas. But I wanted to point out one other thing. San Antonio's home. I've lived here for 20 years. We've developed over 30 developments in San Antonio, 10 of which that have utilized this PFC concept. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. Again, as Ms. Turner had mentioned, 12 acres, about 300 units. And of course, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the product tonight, but the product, again, is something that can be flexible depending on what the city is looking for. Now, I'll talk about the 4-story and the elevator surge and what the kind of material percentages that you could look for. But again, the most important thing that what we're looking at is building a Class A plus luxury apartment complex. And so that's something that within those frames, that is what we're aiming to do. And now as far as colors, look, style, field of view, anything else, that is going to, and saving trees too, of course, is going to be important for moving forward. Next slide. Y'all are again familiar with the location on Pat Booker. Next slide. Specifically, again, familiar since we can see where we're at right now here. Moving on, one thing that's unique about this is the topography with the site. So one thing that I'll be discussing a second ago, some people have asked before, well, why not a market rate deal? Why not a deal that can pay full taxes? And there's a couple of different reasons behind it. The site itself can lend itself to it. Or why not retail? And the owner of the tract, Mr. Stephen Roth, is here too to potentially answer some of those questions as well. What's the highest and best use for the property? I mean, again, as an interested third party, and I'll be as transparent as possible and mention that, of course, we want to develop multifamily. That's what we do. But looking at it objectively, we believe that multifamily would be the highest and best use, as it's not on the corners. Well, usually you see a little bit more retail in the corner and the strip centers in the middle. But due to the topography of the site as it starts to sink down, any one-story retail would not be very visible from Pat Booker. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why it hasn't actually been developed over time. And so what we were going to propose is a 4-story apartment complex in the middle and then 3-story along the sides, as you would see. And so that would lend itself to being elevator served. And one question that I know that's been asked prior to is, who would you serve? And the idea is to serve the residents of the community that we live in. Now, sure, we would like to bring in young professionals, but we would also like to serve the resident. We would like to bring in military personnel as well, but we would like to serve the people that live here. And that was part of the concept of bringing in the elevators so that the units that we have already set aside for ADA can also be added additional for Americans with disabilities. So that hence the 4-story to provide to go the extra step beyond that. As I was saying earlier, one of the aspects of market rate housing when we're building into this quality with the taxes, and I know it's something that we would have to discuss, and one of the reasons why we're asking for the PFC is to build it of this usually has rents above, usually we're looking at the Pearl range, 210, 220 a foot. And that's actually what's usually being able to pencil right now. So we're looking at it as an economic catalyst for the area, and we're also looking at it because of the challenges of the site. Because of the product that we want to build, and because of the challenges with the topography, with the density, usually looking at over 300 units, and to put 300 units with this type of product can become challenging, especially to meet what the city wants as well. Next slide. This is just a proposed elevation. We took this one from a product that we built in Mansfield, Texas. So this is an actual photo of what we had built, primarily brick, stucco, and siding. I'm happy to again discuss, but I think, again, one of the issues that I don't want to belabor the point and extend too long is I just want to point out that if you look through our portfolio of the 80 projects that we've developed over the state, we can do almost any one of them, depending on what the look wants to be. This is, again, simply what we were proposing because it uses a majority of masonry materials, and we thought it would look sharp coming off Pat Booker. Again, as the site tends to dip itself downhill, we would propose 4 stories so that it could be visible from Pat Booker. Additionally, one thing that I forgot to mention on the previous slide is, if you notice, we pushed back some of those buildings some too, in an effort to save as many trees as we can along the front. We have some beautiful trees up there that are huge. And so the idea would be to save that too. Hence, that also creates a little bit more of a problem with tearing down. I'm sorry, if you can go to the next slide and the slide after that. Another proposed elevation, again, something we built here in San Antonio, simply what the city as a partner would desire, what the citizens, what the residents would desire, if, again, we move forward with the PFC concept. We're not here to try and push anything upon y'all, just present an option, something to discuss, and whether we move forward or not is entirely up to y'all. Next slide. Again, that's Main Street Lofts in Mansfield that we had mentioned, 4-story mainly. On that elevation is almost entirely masonry, 100% masonry. That is all going to be brick and stucco. And then when we do use siding, where you had seen on the percentages, that would be cementitious siding. So it would be the long-lasting cementitious siding, but usually not visible to the street. Next slide. Here in San Antonio, another example, that reveal panel on the side, brick, and giving it that sort of flat top design, a little bit more urban, but 100% modern and Class A apartment construction. Next slide. This is just the interior of the clubhouse in San Antonio. This is actually where my associate Kelly, she lives in one of these. This is a PFC product. This is exactly what we are proposing, so we're not showing a different kind of product and switching something out. This is, again, what we're proposing. Next slide. Interior design of the units, as you can see, health and fitness. And then something else to mention, that another city close by, along with the city of San Antonio, that is looking at the PFC project, at the PFC concept. One thing that we did as well is the city of Cibolo, Texas. We have done a PFC with them, and this is the one that we're pointing to right now. We've had City Manager Turner and Casada at this property to take a look. And again, we'd invite you guys to come by at any time, you know, whether letting us know if you would like a tour or just to come by and see what it looks like as it's operating from day to day, unbidden or not. Okay, so about the meat of the presentation, the Public Facility Corporation, and what we have done is we've done a few of these. Again, I don't want to belabor and go too long into it, as the Vaquero company put a good presentation together on what the PFC is, but I think something that we do want to discuss with the city is what their risks are and what the safeguards can be. We know that what this exists as Section 303 of the Texas Government Code is essentially a partnership with the city. NRP Group would like to develop, construct, and manage a Class A apartment building without the $2.10, $2.20 rents that we don't know are sustainable in the area. And therefore, we are asking for the partnership, not only based on that, but based on some of the challenges with the land as well, to be an economic catalyst. And I have a case study as an example at the end. Next slide. So the basic structure would be that the city itself forms a PFC. Now, the PFC doesn't have to just be a sole entity that is going to partner with multifamily developments. Under Section 303, you can do a variety of things. I would ask that the council could discuss that as well, but it's a mechanism to build libraries, hospitals, schools. It's a mechanism that can issue bonds. There are quite a few things that a PFC can do besides just the ad valorem property tax exemption. And that is something that I wanted to point out, because it does give the city a flexibility to be able to do that. What would NRP is currently under contract to purchase the property, and then we would convey to the PFC to the created PFC a ground lease to the city. The city would own it. We would ground lease it directly back. So you would own the property. You would own the vertical improvements, and then fully own as the complete owner after 75 years, the term of the lease. However, prior to that, what we are owning is just a partnership for the vertical improvements above. It's a leasehold, effectively, is what we're doing. Again, as we said earlier, NRP builds the development. At completion, the PFC is the owner of the land and the improvements, and it's encumbered by the lease, allowing the JV to operate the venture, which would be us in partnership with y'all. A little bit about the deal. This is a $53 million proposal. Equity in the deal is $18 million, and the construction loan is approximately $35 million. As part of the risk thing that we wanted to mention earlier, we would provide both the repayment and completion guarantees on the loan. That is completely on the developer. That is not on the city whatsoever, and that is spelled out both in the developer agreement, the lease agreement, and any partnership agreement that y'all see fit to make it spelled out in. The PFC takes on no liability from a construction standpoint and from a loan guarantee standpoint. That's us. As far as managing goes and leasing up, that's also on us. So that 100% is going to be done in-house. Again, as I said, the buck stops with us. The PFC City does not fund any of the pre-development costs or any of the costs afterwards. There's no issuing of bonds or any other incentives that we are asking for other than obviously the creation of the PFC. Next slide. So we're going to discuss a little bit of the economic benefits. One of the main ones is the actual economic development. It's an opportunity to stimulate further commercial plus retail growth. And I will get into that as a case study at the end. It's an increased stock of Class A, workforce housing options, and increasing the tax base for surrounding property. So again, as we said earlier, in terms of the economic catalyst, and I'll show an example of what we did, we have shown case studies of when we have done this around the city and around the state. We have seen the other property values go up and the other tax base go up around significantly. So it's again, to serve as a catalyst. The financial benefits to the city, this mirrors what you had seen previous, pretty much industry standard. An origination fee, sales commission, and then the 25% carried interest in the JV entity. So, and a 25% preferred return. As earlier Vaquero had mentioned other numbers, and whatever they end up being, it's going to mirror close to this percentage. So there is that benefit to the city, which is going to exceed the amount of taxes that would be paid to the city. So that's in and of itself, and that's something that we could also, formulate with the negotiation of the terms. Next slide. So this is just an example. This is what we're putting up at a very conservative level, but I wanted to show what the economic benefits to the city. We're not even projecting this out to 75 years. We're only merely projecting this as if there was a projected sale or refinance. So a lot of times, for example, the project that Ms. Crunkleton lives in, the Acero, we're still owners in there, and we will continue to be owners the whole way through. We are not interested in selling it in some cases. We have sold. When we say it, we're talking about selling that leasehold interest. But when we sell it, and this is the part that's the risk factor, is who's going to maintain it afterwards? How are they going to maintain it? And the most important thing is when it's created, is that it's built in with safeguards to make sure that it's maintained as a Class A property through the entire time. And to what standard is Class A? Well, that again it's an industry standard. I can be happy to share what that language looks like. I didn't bring the whole paragraphs of what it is, but it's essentially a language that says that what it looks like now is what it will look like in the future. And it must be maintained to that level, and that is going to be the responsibility of the JV partner. Those simply are just cash flows on what it looks like. Y'all would be, of course, recipients of both. And again, you can project that out more. You can project that out in the future. It's certainly more than what the property is paying now, and would be what it would be paying in the share of taxes to the city. Next slide. Okay, so the case study, and I'll conclude with this. What we had built in Ceballos, and I wanted to pick one of the first PFCs we ever did in 2011, Ceballos Loss and Ceballos Street in Southtown San Antonio. It was 252 units. It was partnership with the San Antonio Housing Trust under their PFC. This has a slightly different set aside. They're 25% at 50% area median income. What we are proposing and what the previous presentation was proposing was 50% and 80% area median income, which is in line with what the current market is in this area and surrounding. And then the rest would be at market. Next slide. That's a photo of Ceballos Loss. That is what it looked like 2 years ago when we took that photo. That's what it looks like today, and it's what it looked like in 2011. So again, the location is in the Southtown off of Ceballos Street, directly south of downtown. As y'all are familiar, in 2010, 2011, what that area was predominantly industrial. A lot of single-family homes, distribution, and of course the Blue Star complex, which was cool back then, but has gone under a resurgence lately. Next slide. The very first development that came into was Ceballos Lofts. That's a photo, again, 2 years ago, what we had built, the interior of the units. And we are seeing that this has been consistently leased up. Next slide. So here's where the meat of the case study comes in. And effectively what has happened after Ceballos Lofts has been built. Liberty Bar was moved to Southtown, Peanut Factory Lofts, Mila, Southtown Flats, and not only that, it's what we built in the area too. When we presented the PFC to the city of San Antonio and to the trust back in 2011, we said our goal is to come back here as using this as an economic catalyst to prove up potentially higher rents and come back with a market rate deal. And that's what we did. We came back with the flats at Big Tex. And we were followed shortly thereafter with Agave, Southtown Flats, Mila, and Heritage Plaza, and Peanut Factory Lofts, not to mention the 1010 South Florida Street and to some of the restaurants that have come through. That's just a small example of what we were looking at for a case study for the economic development in the area, and what we had hoped to achieve, and what we actually did achieve by building it, and what we can attribute directly to the success of Ceballos and proving in that we can build that product down there, and bringing folks in with, again, the discretionary income to be able to live at places and work at places, and frankly, play at places around the area as well. The goal, again, is bringing sit-down restaurants like it could be here. Next slide. I didn't again wanted to go too long into the presentation. I could have spoke, and I still can go back to each slide and discuss as per your questions or whatever the case may be. I know you all probably need either maybe additional time to think about it or to discuss with council. And for that, I'll turn over to any questions that y'all may have.
Okay, this is our opportunity to express our feelings initially to this projected development. So I'll open it up to people on council. Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question actually is based on your answer, maybe well into one or two more answers. Can this project be done without the CFC or the BFC concept?
No, sir. Not in our estimation. We're not even that close.
I personally do not feel that it's the right fit for our city, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And there's no other, I have no other questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so I'm clear, 75 years from now, when I'm dead, what happens to this property?
It's reverted to the city, and the city can choose management. The city can choose a manager. They own the asset.
So we own it?
Yes, sir.
We operate?
Yes, sir. You can, or you can choose to bring in a manager.
Okay. Since I'm sure you were talking about the different types of developments that you would potentially bring Universal City with a development like this, where would you put them? We don't have a lot of space left.
No, that's true, but it's also in some of the areas, just like Southtown, is one of the reasons why I showed the example, is it put in some of the existing areas that are already there, some of the retail that exists, and some of the spaces that are still built, that are built but vacant. For example, driving further down Pat Booker, closer to the base on the west, or excuse me, on the north side of Pat Booker, some of those areas.
Would the people that live in the apartment complex you're building want to have something closer to them, walking distance? I mean, right now we've got two pretty much empty retail facilities next to this property. I mean, I would think if I'm spending that much money on, kind of like a Pearl. People move to Pearl, everything's at Pearl. You don't have to get in a car and go anywhere. Whereas if you live in this apartment complex and say you develop in the area that we're looking at revitalizing, I mean, that's a drive. Getting in a car and driving down to the end of the city. So I'm kind of asking, I mean, have you looked at any other available property in the city and considered, hey, this would be something really good that I could put retail that's close to this building to, one, offset the fact that this is a commercial property. We would love to have something that generates property tax and sales tax revenue, and we're foregoing both of those for a benefit of a percentage of, I'm not going to try to get into the details, but a percentage of the profits or the property that we would get, as opposed to, I think I did the math quickly on a $50 million property as opposed to $290,000 off of $50 million. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that, based upon our property tax rate. But also the fact that we would be bringing in families that will have children that will go to our school systems, which will generate no money for our school system to offset that because it's owned by the city. So I'm just hitting a couple things. I personally am the more and more I talk about it out loud, the more and more I'm just not a fan of PFC. So that's I just don't see that happening from my standpoint. Thank you.
I'd like to know more about, Councilmember Shelby just touched on it. How do you justify the influx of students in the school districts to help that out? I've got signs everywhere that tell people go vote. There's a bond to do this, and I need you to explain that to me.
Yeah, I understand. Well, part of it again is what we're not going to. I wouldn't go too far into the economic offset of what it's building. So let me just say directly to the kids. As most, it would be problematic, and I'm not going to disagree with this. If lots of properties were property tax exempt, it obviously would be. But because the school districts are based off average daily attendance, and this is what we discuss, is whatever student comes in is going to count towards the average daily attendance. It's effectively the taxes are paid to the state and redistributed. What we normally do, if there's any shortfall in that, we would propose any kind of pilot directly to the school district to make that up. So if they receive average daily attendance and there was a bonding difference or whatever the case needs to be, the project itself can pay a pilot to make it to where that they would ultimately be whole, as if they were still receiving the same money based on whatever the additional students that come in, including the students that are currently there.
You know, if we were San Antonio or Cibolo or Schertz, I could see this as a possibility. But we need commercial. And if you would call this a commercial venture, I would support it, but I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to kind of ride on what Councilman Neville said too. I'm not against PFCs, and I would like to hear, I'd be open to different ideas in other places, depending on what the project is. But I get a little confused. We were presented with an apartment complex on this very same property, feels like about almost a year ago. And I believe everybody on this, whether we were for it or against it, we're giving ideas now. We're actually pretty excited about that, the opportunity to take a look at what's going out there. And I'm looking at this, I had the question about the 4 stories, which I like because of the fact that it creates living space for everybody in the community, not just what we were presented with not too long ago, which is just a certain age group. So it's getting excited, and then I got totally unexcited with Mr. Maxwell's first question, which was going to be mine. Does this project not move forward without the PFCs? We've had time to look at it. I've had time to look at it. We've had concerned citizens, and I just can't get out of my head. I don't see the benefit of this city being part owner in partnership of apartment complex. And I think that's a very bad fit for that space right there. Again, I don't want to shut down PFCs in general as a rule. I'd be open to different projects depending on what that project is, but this, if it's got to be totally the PFC, I don't know how I or a lot of the people I've talked to in the city would want to go along with that. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
You may reply to any of these statements that are made. I mean, these are just feelings that the council is passing on to you right now.
Well, I appreciate that, and I mean, and clearly, look, one of our policies as at NRP, it's not necessarily a written policy, but at least it's one that I've said, we're not going to go anywhere where the city doesn't, or our partner doesn't think it's a good fit. So if the partner, I guess there are certain things that I could say that I think it could be an economic incentive or whatever the case may be. But mostly in general, I would say, judging from the comments that I've received, it would not be that good of a fit, either in this area or because of a PFC or whatever the case may be, or the desire to see commercial or a variety of things. And so I don't necessarily want to challenge what they're saying. I simply, what the council is saying, I simply would rather just respond and say, we understand, and we'll either look at a different area or a different fit, or maybe try to look for an area where we could put more units and develop under a market rate condition. We don't feel, at least in our opinion, so I do want to categorize and say this. It's what we believe would work or wouldn't work in the area. If somebody else can come back and build apartment complexes or commercial on there, absolutely. I'm not speaking for them, so I do want to make that clear to Councilmember Maxwell. When I said that whether a PFC would work or not, that's what we can envision working here. When we underwrote it ourselves, when we used a variety of factors that we did, that's how we came up with needing the ad valorem property tax exemption. And I want to be as transparent as possible, and I shared the numbers with Mr. Casada too, and said this is why, ultimately why we needed it. That's how we would pencil it out. Somebody else might be entirely different. So I don't want to speak for them by saying that.
Of course not.
And I simply want to say I've read the will from the residents and from the council. And look, we live here, right? I live in San Antonio, y'all. Universal City's neighbors. I may have come back in 3 years. It may not be a PFC. It may be something different. And so I don't want to be put in a position where I'm telling y'all, no, you should do this because of this, or you should do this. So I can tell from what it is, and my response to you graciously would be thank you, and thanks for your input. If y'all obviously do decide upon reflection and say like, well, maybe we would look at it, we're still going to be interested under this scenario. And if y'all don't wish to proceed, and it seems like y'all don't, then that's the direction that I'll take going from here.
Well, that's the reason why we're here with you this
Yeah.
evening. So, Mr. Robb, would you like to speak, sir?
Yes, if I may,
Please.
address the council, I would appreciate it. I'm Steve Robb, I'm the president of Investment Realty Company, and we're the general partner that manages this particular property. We put together the investment partnership in 2007. There was a time that the property was in a trust because of the passing of the owner, who was the developer of the project behind it. I don't know not the Peppermill apartment, but the single-family residential community behind it, and this was the commercial traffic left in front of it. And I've worked with Kim Turner very carefully and constantly since when she was the economic development director and working on marketing this property. I've got 35 years of experience in commercial real estate. I started after I came out of the Marine Corps in 1985 with Investment Realty Company, and I and my wife are now the owners of Investment Realty Company. I'm fully aware of the council's desire to see this developed as a commercial property. That is something that has come clear to me over the years, and obviously that's the way it's sown and was your intention in your land plan and master plan for the community. I've spent, 13 years in working on trying to market this property. We did not expect to hold it for longer than 2 or 3 years. We certainly became aware very early on that the council was not in favor of apartments. So we did not even think about that particular avenue. I have approached repeatedly, very repeatedly, every retail developer in San Antonio over the last 10 years. I know them all. We work with them all the time. And marketing the property, trying to get them interested in developing commercial property here, because I know that's your desire. the issues that are brought up and have been expressed are insurmountable. This property is impossible to be developed successfully as a retail property. It's not on a corner, which is very important. As you pointed out, you have two retail centers on either corner now, and neither one of them are particularly successful or have been for years. Being in the middle between two unsuccessful corners is not a recipe for success. We've also tried to market it to individual pad sites, which could be anywhere from car repair to quick service restaurants or any other user that was interested in half acre to acre sites. We have a whole land plan we put together like that. We've had no interest, no matter how many people we've contacted. And also the fall of sight on the street to back is very much a negative, because that's the retail developer need to be up on eye level, not down below. That's very much a negative. But also, as you're very familiar, you're having to compete for retail and commercial presence with Interstate 35 to 1604, which are much, much higher visibility in traffic areas. And that's what retail needs. Pat Booker Road has certainly increased. I think you're up to something like 30,000 cars a day. But you're more familiar than I on how much new retail has been developed on Pat Booker Road. This is, with 10 acres, you could develop probably 80 to 100,000 square feet of retail on it. In order to be successful in retail development, and I'm not making this up, I'm just reading what everybody knows, a lender, bank is not going to give you the money to develop it unless you're 50 to 60% pre-leased. So if you developed 100,000 square feet, you'd have to have 50,000 square feet of locked-in tenants who are going to pay, or the bank's not going to give you dime one. In this situation, you probably need even more than that. It's not going to happen. And we've not been able to find anyone who's even willing to take a look at it or put it in a contract or try to make it work like that. So I would have to express to you, this is not a viable site for commercial development. Ms. Turner made me aware that Christus Santa Rosa had put in a medical facility. I actually bought another doctor's attorney at Christus. I went up there and talked with them and approached Christus about the possibility of a medical park, a medical facility here. Really no interest there. I've talked to other medical professionals here thinking maybe a small park of individual buildings would work. There's no interest. In fact, some I talked to were actually planning on moving out of Universal City to Church or Civil or Selma, and they were not going to be staying here. So I've got no traction there. So it's been extremely difficult. We talked at one time about self-storage, and that was not a popular concept at the time, so we crossed that off the list. To the councilman's point, last December, the first Tuesday of December, we did come here and present an apartment project. It was done more as to get a sense of how the city council would react to that. I did not have a developer in hand at that time, but because it seemed that might be a good time to start thinking about multifamily for this site. I wanted to come and get a sense from the council if that would be something you would consider. And I have the notes, and Mr. Casada's taken the notes. It was fairly clear at that time. Almost all of the city council thought that that was a good idea and they liked the concept. I then started going out to apartment developers. Totally different community. In commercial real estate, you do retail, you may do apartments, you may do office, you may do industrial, but they're totally separate development cycles and everything else that goes with it. So they're all different people, different organizations, different sets of experience. So I started going to apartment developers to see what their response would be. I did not have a lot of positive response. There is a very big desire for apartment developers right now to find new sites. Demand for multifamily homes in the San Antonio metropolitan area right now is very strong, just as the demand for single-family homes is very strong, and we can't even meet the demand of this. But consistently, the response was, I'm not going to be able to get the rents there because they look at the rents of the properties around. We did our own study on what the rents were, and they were well short of what could support financing and successful apartment property. So I was not making any traction there with a market rate type of project. I was just, no one was going to really get very serious or interested about it. During the course of that, we met up with NRP and Jason Orechko. They have a tremendous reputation in San Antonio as being one of the top developers in San Antonio of multifamily. They've had consistent success. They know this type of property very well. Other of the metropolitan cities around San Antonio have done this successfully. And so this, when I approached him about it, he was very excited about it, liked the area, liked Universal City, thought this would be a very, very good project. And so that has led us to this presentation this evening. My sense, I'm not asking questions, I'm merely stating what maybe a summary of what's been said, is that my indication is that the council doesn't necessarily reject apartments there, because back in December, there was a very favorable consensus on that. I'll let that stand. It apparently is because of the PSC formulation, and that's something you all have to discuss, and certainly you all have your own advisors to go over that. Many, many people have decided that that is a good, for their particular city. Universal City is unique and will have to decide for themselves, what is best for your city. No one can ask you about that. But this property is not going to work for commercial. I've broken my sword on that one over the last 13 years, and I'm kind of tired of it. People are tired of me trying to talk them into it. It's just very difficult. Functionally, it works very well for apartments. We've even gotten a sense back from Joint Base San Antonio Randolph, which you're very familiar with, and that is a design characteristic that Mr. Rachik had designed around, and I think he did a very successful job of that, along with the guidance from the city. I'm not sure where to go from here, and I'm not asking you to answer that question, your debate is amongst yourselves and not with me. But I did want to give you the benefit of all these years of experience, my experience with commercial real estate, as well as my experience with this particular property. There's no question this would be a very successful development, but it needs a little help or it's not going to work. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Frank, thank you. I appreciate your position and how you feel about this property. And I know that you've done a lot of research in terms of the commercial potential of it, and that it would be very challenging. We have to face the fact that we have so little of potential for growth, and if we can keep things as retail commercial as possible, it certainly would be in our best interest. Another one is simply we agree that the potential of a multifamily certainly would be one of the options. I think what the council is concerned about is the particular types of funding and owning property, and is that should, in a city of our size, should that be a significant factor? And so we're just giving you our opinions this evening on where we're coming from. I don't think there's a total objection to having any multifamily or potential of multifamily. I think it's the way that it would be financed.
I understand. And one final comment, with 300 units of apartments there, and however many people that lines up to it, NRB could be a tremendous amount of demographic research they could provide to you, even to the extent of how much income that would probably bring to the city for retail. But it would make a huge difference to the retail properties, the Coronado Square and Universal Square, and their success, because it brings in new families that would be using those facilities, as you pointed out, because they're so closely related to one another with walking distance.
Good, thank you very much. Anybody else? Mr. Shepard.
Yes, thank you. I do want to follow up. I am not totally against apartment complex. I am against apartment complexes that the city owns and leases back. That is my problem with this. We have two pieces of property, very similar size, on the street. You know, if one of them became a retail center and one of them became an apartment complex, I would be okay with that, as long as we are not owners of it. We already own a commercial piece of property that we operate, in essence. I really don't think we want another one. Thank you.
Well, I think everybody has pretty much given their opinion on what we think about this. Thank you for coming this evening. I hope that's why these forums are good. You can get at least a feel for how the council has initially looked at it, and we had the proposal a couple of weeks ago, certainly was committed to the PAC as well. So, anybody else need to offer? There's no action. Beverly?
I was just saying, I'm in agreement with everybody else. It's the structure and the property taxes I worry about. I also wanted to thank our citizens for saying what you said. Okay, and that's it.
Very good. This is just obviously this is just a presentation of the concept, so there is no action on this whatsoever. And certainly, if you want to come back to us with the potential for something else that might not be ready to a PFC, and that's the property of Mr. Rao. I appreciate your comments again. You have worked very closely with us on numerous other projects. So thank you very much, gentlemen, lady, for coming this evening. Appreciate it. Okay. Thanks very much. Let's move on. If you have to go, that's certainly, we understand. Thank you. Okay, the next item of business is tab number C, which is to discuss and to consider resolution 927-2021, resolution by the City Council of Universal City to cast votes to elect the Board of Directors of the Bear County Appraisal District for 2022-2023 term and setting an effective date. This has to be done by resolution, and you can see in your packets, everyone, that the number of votes that each of the elements gets in the county and who the potential candidates are. I would like to recommend to council that we consider casting the 12 votes, as small as they are, at least, but that we can cast them for the Alamo Community College. Community colleges. We have obviously Northeast Lakeview here in the community. We could maybe cast them for one of the suburban cities, but taking a look at it, I think in our best interest, going for the schools, the Alamo colleges would be where we should cast our 12 votes. But I'm opening it up to you guys. That's why we brought it before you, because that's the ultimate decision is by resolution is where we would cast those. Even there are only 12 votes, but the community Alamo colleges does have a significant number of votes. Nowhere near the county or the city of San Antonio, but at least a significant number. That's what I would like you guys to consider.
I have no objection.
We will need this in the form of a motion then to cast those 12 votes for the Alamo colleges.
I make a motion that we approve nominations for the Alamo Community College District.
It's Alamo colleges now.
Alamo College, yes.
ACCD forever.
Yes. I don't know if I need to say this name, but I'm going to mess up the last name. Leslie Shikanowitz.
That's close enough.
Okay. But anyway, I make that motion.
Second. Second by Councilmember Shelby. Any other discussion? Anyone else? Okay, then call for the vote, please, Kim.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Najarian, a second by Mr. Shelby. Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Aye.
And Councilmember Foley?
Aye.
Very good, that motion passes. We'll pass on to the Alamo colleges that we cast our votes for the colleges to represent us with the Bear County Appraisal District. Okay, that concludes our business for this evening. We'll move on now to our city manager comments. Ms. Turner?
I have 3 reminders for council and for the audience. So November 6th, which is this Saturday, is the Veterans Day Parade. So you have before you your RSVP sheet. If you could fill that out and provide me with that at the end of the meeting, we would greatly appreciate that so we can plan accordingly. Also, we will have a special council meeting on Tuesday, November 9th at 6:30 p.m. in this facility, and that is the resolution to canvass the votes from the special election, which will close this evening. And then also the elected officials reception, which is November 10th. That is through the chamber, and that is going to be held at Lubon Palace, would be my guess.
It is.
Yes, and I just need to know if anybody is going to attend so that I can RSVP for you.
Okay,
Think about it.
we'll let you know.
I already RSVP'd to Kristen, but
Well, that's good.
I haven't heard if she got my email.
Which one are you RSVPing for, sir?
For the,
Elected official?
yeah.
I will put you down as an RSVP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you haven't yet RSVP'd to Kristen or Kim, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, very good. Anything else, ma'am?
That's everything, sir. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, let's start with Councilmember Maxwell.
No, hey, Mr. Mayor, I don't really have anything for the group, but it was a good presentation. I just feel that if they're going to invest in our city, they should invest in the city and own up to it, not swap it off for us. That's my opinion. And that's all I got.
Very good. Okay, Paul?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and filling the room, and thanks for the input that we've got through the week. And that's really all I have to say.
Okay, very good.
Smith. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Beverly?
I was gonna say the pumpkin patch is done for the year. And it was good. We had lots of people coming in. I think the nonprofits are all very happy from working there. And I think we had more nonprofits than usual. And it was nice to see people working in a positive way for their cause. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
And I'd like to give a special thank you to Regina and the board for helping
Yes,
all the
Regina.
volunteers, because it's a yeoman effort. If any of you attended the pumpkin patch, you know that it's a labor of love. It's an intense labor of love. It takes a lot of work. I see a couple of smiling faces there, nodding yes. Okay. All right, Bear.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Dick.
Oh, thank you, sir. It was interesting to see the school zone lights flashing all day Saturday, Sunday at Kitty Hawk Middle School. I don't know what happened, but it didn't slow down the traffic. A couple of questions about Kitty Hawk and David. When they open up finally 1604 and Kitty Hawk, will there be two left turn lanes?
Yes. The answer is yes.
And another question I have is there any way you can open a left turn into Chevron? I don't personally use Chevron, but there is no way to get the Chevron going toward Pat Booker on Kitty Hawk.
Okay. That's noted. I think we're going to find a pretty substantial change in the traffic pattern once 1976 is totally completed. I think that the traffic has been exacerbated with the problem because they've had to redirect themselves to get to where we're going, and I hope that'll help, Dick. I hope that'll help. It is.
The Dutch Brothers Coffee House is a success already with 30,000 cars lined up.
It's all pictures.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have, there's one item I received an email from Spa Glass, and they had a golf tournament out at Olympia Hills, and they were very, very laudatory for our golf group for setting it up. And they've had this tournament there for a number of years, and they come back because they get treated so well. And I think that's a feather in the cap for Sal Garcia and his staff, because they really do put on a phenomenal golf tournament. And they deserve all the kudos they can get, and anytime we can give them some, because they usually get frowned on instead of applauded, this is our chance to say thank you guys for what you've done. And if you've ever attended their Thursday night functions that they have out there, some of them were very, very colorfully decorated last Thursday evening because they had a Halloween attire. I can see a few members out there who were dressed appropriately. But this is a great opportunity for people to come out and enjoy themselves at our facility, and it's just a great opportunity, and people have really enjoyed it. So I just let you know as a group that every once in a while on a Thursday evening, if you want to come out and have a good time and meet some of your neighbors, come on out to the Olympia Hills Golfing Competition. And it's actually called the Golf and not conference center anymore, we call it the event center now. Okay, so, okay. Thank you everyone for attending this evening. This is again, you get to see your council in action, some of the concerns we have for this particular potential project. I guess you know how we feel. And again, we don't meet beforehand on any of these issues, absolutely not. This is the first time that anybody that sits up here has a chance to discuss these issues. So thanks again for coming this evening. It is now 7:34. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks for coming.